Imagine a wedding so scandalous that it would shock an entire kingdom and challenge the very foundations of medieval society. Picture a bride so beautiful she was called the Fair, and a groom destined to become the last Anglo-Saxon king of England. This is the story of a marriage that defied the church, embraced ancient traditions, and ultimately changed the course of English history forever. In the year 1042, when England was a land caught between old pagan customs and rising Christian influence, two young nobles would enter into a union that would scandalize the medieval world. This wasn't your typical royal wedding with cathedral bells and bishops blessing the union. No, this was something far more controversial, far more shocking. Before we dive into this incredible true story, I want you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you're going to want to follow along for more hidden stories from history that will absolutely blow your mind. The bride was Edith Swanishalls, known throughout the land as Edith the Fair. Born around 1025, she possessed a beauty so striking that her very nickname became legendary. Her surname, Swanishalls, literally meant swan neck in Old English, a testament to her elegant, graceful appearance. But Edith was far from just a pretty face in a world where women were often treated as mere political pawns. The groom was Harold Godwinson, Earl of East Anglia, a man whose destiny would lead him to the throne of England and ultimately to his death at the Battle of Hastings in 1066. But in 1042, he was a young, ambitious nobleman from one of the most powerful families in Anglo-Saxon England. What made their wedding so shocking wasn't who they were, but how they chose to marry. In an act of defiance that would send shockwaves through the Christian establishment, Harold and Edith chose to wed in the ancient Danish tradition known as handfasting, or mordenico, the Danish manner. This wasn't some quick elopement or secret ceremony. Handfasting was a legitimate form of marriage recognized by Danish and Saxon nobility. But here's the catch. The rapidly rising Catholic Church refused to acknowledge it as a true marriage. To them, Edith would forever be Harold's concubine, not his wife. The ceremony itself would have been a fascinating blend of ancient ritual and solemn vows. Unlike Christian marriages performed in churches under the watchful eyes of priests, handfasting ceremonies were community affairs. Harold and Edith would have clasped hands before witnesses, making sacred oaths to each other that bound them as husband and wife in the eyes of their people and their gods. The shocking nature of this union becomes even clearer when we understand what Edith brought to this marriage. This wasn't some powerless woman grateful for any noble attention. Evidence suggests that substantial dowry bequests were made at the time of their union, including valuable properties like Walsingham. These weren't gifts to a mistress. They were the formal exchanges that marked a legitimate marriage between equals. Their wedding shocked medieval society because it represented a direct challenge to the Church's growing power. Christianity was asserting its dominance over ancient traditions, demanding that all marriages be sanctified by priests and performed according to Christian rites. Harold and Edith's handfasting was a bold declaration that they honored the old ways, that they valued their ancestors' customs over foreign religious mandates. But here's where the story gets even more incredible. Despite the Church's disapproval, despite the scandal their marriage caused, Harold and Edith built one of the most successful unions in medieval English history. Their marriage lasted over 20 years, producing 6 children who would carry on their legacy. If you're enjoying this incredible true story, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more shocking tales from history. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I love connecting with history lovers from around the world. Their children were a testament to the strength of their union. Their daughter Geetha, born in 1053, would grow up to witness some of the most tumultuous events in English history. Their youngest, Gunhild, born in 1055, would live through the Norman conquest that would forever change England. But the most shocking aspect of Harold and Edith's marriage wasn't the ceremony itself. It was what it represented. In choosing handfasting, they weren't just selecting an alternative wedding style. They were making a political statement, declaring their loyalty to Anglo-Saxon and Danish traditions in the face of Norman-influenced Christian pressure. The timing of their marriage was crucial. The year 1042 marked the beginning of Edward the Confessor's reign, a king heavily influenced by Norman culture and Christian orthodoxy. Edward's court favored Norman customs and Christian ceremonies over traditional Anglo-Saxon practices. Harold and Edith's handfasting was, in many ways, a rebellion against this cultural shift. What makes this story even more dramatic is how society viewed their union. While the church branded Edith a concubine, the Anglo-Saxon nobility largely accepted their marriage as legitimate. This created a fascinating social divide where Edith existed in a liminal space, simultaneously rejected and accepted, scorned and respected. The couple established their household with all the dignity and ceremony of any noble marriage. They held lands together, made political decisions as partners, and raised their children with the full expectation that they would be recognized as legitimate heirs to Harold's titles and properties. But perhaps the most shocking element of their story was yet to come. In the spring of 1066, Harold made a decision that would shake their world to its core. Facing political pressure and the need to secure important alliances, Harold entered into a second marriage, a legal Christian marriage with Edith of Mercia, the widow of Welsh Prince Gruffydd ap Llywelyn. This second marriage was everything Harold and Edith the Fair's wedding was not. It was a cold political calculation, blessed by the church, designed to secure the loyalty of the powerful Mercian earls Edwin and Morcar. Harold married Edith of Mercia not for love, but for the military support her brothers could provide against the growing threats to his kingdom. The irony was devastating. The woman who had been Harold's true partner for over 20 years, who had borne his children and shared his bed, was suddenly relegated to the shadows while a political bride took her place as queen. Yet historical evidence suggests that Harold never truly abandoned Edith the Fair. Their bond, forged in that shocking handfasting ceremony decades earlier, proved stronger than political convenience. When Harold was crowned King of England in January 1066, Edith the Fair found herself in an impossible position. She was the mother of the king's children, his partner of 2 decades. Yet she could never be queen because their marriage wasn't recognized by the church that now held sway over English politics. The most heartbreaking and shocking chapter of their story unfolded on October 14, 1066, at the Battle of Hastings. Harold, facing William the Conqueror's Norman invasion, led the Anglo-Saxon forces in a desperate fight for England's independence. The battle raged from morning until dusk, with Harold fighting valiantly to preserve the England he loved. When the dust settled and the Norman victory was complete, Harold lay dead among thousands of his countrymen. But here's where Edith the Fair's story becomes truly extraordinary. William the Conqueror, in a display of contempt for the fallen king, initially refused Harold's mother the right to bury her son's body, demanding an enormous ransom of gold equal to Harold's weight. It was then that Edith the Fair stepped forward to perform the most shocking and tender act of their entire relationship. When Harold's body was so mutilated by battle that even his own mother couldn't identify him with certainty, Edith volunteered to find her beloved among the corpses. Walking among the blood-soaked battlefield, this woman who had been denied recognition as queen performed the most queenly act imaginable. She identified Harold's body by intimate marks known only to her, marks that spoke of their decades of love and partnership. Legend says these identifying marks were love bites, tokens of passion that had survived even death. Whether this detail is historically accurate or poetic embellishment, it speaks to the intimate, passionate nature of their relationship that had begun with that shocking handfasting ceremony 24 years earlier. Thanks to Edith's identification, Harold was given a proper Christian burial at Waltham Abbey, the very institution whose authority he had once challenged by choosing handfasting over church marriage. The irony was profound. The church that had refused to recognize his marriage to Edith now provided his final resting place, made possible only through her devoted love. This moment on the battlefield crystallized everything that had made their marriage so shocking and so powerful. Here was a woman who, despite being denied official recognition, despite being pushed aside for political convenience, remained Harold's truest partner until the very end. The German poet Heinrich Heine immortalized this scene in his 1855 poem, The Battlefield of Hastings, making Edith Swanneck the central character and celebrating her as the embodiment of true love conquering social convention. What made Harold and Edith's wedding truly shocking wasn't just the ceremony itself, but what it represented about the clash between old and new, between authentic love and political expediency, between personal choice and institutional authority. Their handfasting was a declaration that some bonds transcend official recognition. In choosing this ancient form of marriage, they were making a statement that would resonate through the centuries. They were saying that love, commitment, and partnership matter more than the approval of institutions. They were declaring that a relationship's worth isn't determined by external validation, but by the strength of the bond between two people. Their story challenges our modern assumptions about medieval marriage. We often think of medieval unions as cold, political arrangements devoid of genuine affection. But Harold and Edith's relationship, beginning with that shocking handfasting and ending with her tender identification of his body, shows us that real love could and did flourish even in those supposedly unromantic times. Make sure you're subscribed because we have so many more incredible true stories like this one. Stories that reveal the human heart, beating beneath the surface of historical events. After Harold's death, Edith the Fair disappeared from historical records, but her legacy lived on through her children. Her daughters and sons carried forward the bloodline of the last Anglo-Saxon king, keeping alive the memory of an England that might have been. Yet in many ways, Edith and Harold's shocking wedding achieved a kind of immortality. Their love story has inspired numerous novels, poems, and historical studies. Their defiance of convention, their commitment to each other despite social pressure, continues to resonate with readers and historians nearly 1,000 years later. Their handfasting ceremony in 1042 wasn't just a wedding. It was a statement about the right to define one's own relationships, to honor ancestral traditions, and to choose substance over superficial respectability. In a world increasingly dominated by institutional authority, Harold and Edith chose to follow their hearts and their heritage. Looking back nearly 1,000 years later, what seems most shocking about their wedding isn't that it defied the church, but that it represented such authentic human connection in an age we often imagine as cold and calculating. Harold and Edith chose each other not for political advantage but for love, and they honored that choice for over 2 decades. Their story reminds us that in every age, there are people willing to challenge convention for the sake of authentic love. Their handfasting was shocking not because it was wrong, but because it was true. So the next time you think about what makes a marriage real, official documents, religious ceremonies, social approval, remember Harold and Edith, whose shocking wedding created a bond so strong that not even death could break it. If this incredible true story touched your heart, subscribe to our channel and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. History is full of these amazing love stories that challenge everything we think we know about the past. Thanks for joining me on this journey through one of history's most shocking and beautiful weddings.